Caitlin Clark stood at a pivotal point in her career, seemingly with the world at her feet and opportunities knocking from every direction. A household name in the world of women's basketball, Clark's meteoric rise left fans spellbound and her competition scrambling to catch up. With her scoring prowess and a playing style marked by deep three-pointers that defy logic, she became more than a promising athlete. She was a phenomenon reshaping the game, and yet the crossroads at which she found herself went beyond just career choices. It was a defining moment that pulled even the highest authority in the WNBA, Commissioner Cathy Engelbert, into a mix of humility, desperation, and persuasion. But before we proceed further, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. The backdrop for this curious spectacle was the increasing allure of European basketball. Major European clubs were throwing tantalizing offers her way: big money, bigger visibility, and the chance to dominate on yet another front. While the WNBA was growing and making strides, its player salaries were still far from the level some European clubs were willing to dish out to get their hands on a superstar like Clark. European teams were known for their aggressive approach to attracting talent, and Clark wasn't just any talent, she was a game changer. Cathy Engelbert, the commissioner, was feeling the heat. There had been murmurings that Clark was considering jumping ship, drawn to the idea of playing in Europe, which would offer her a lucrative contract that far surpassed what the WNBA could afford under its current salary cap restrictions. The thought of losing such a star was unthinkable for the league, which was trying to build itself as the ultimate destination for women's basketball. And so, with all the tact of a seasoned politician and the passion of a true believer, Engelbert reached out to Clark. Reports suggest the meeting wasn't your typical business negotiation. Engelbert wasn't there to merely talk numbers or pitch brand-building opportunities. She showed up ready to lay it all out on the line. She was earnest, nervous even, and the raw sincerity of it all couldn't be missed. No carefully planned speeches, no flowcharts or flashy presentations. Just a frank appeal to Clark's sense of belonging, legacy, and future. It's said that Engelbert, after a heartfelt explanation of the WNBA's vision and the progress it had made, did something quite unexpected. She apologized. It was the kind of apology that comes from someone who recognizes a system's flaws and takes accountability, even if they didn't personally create the problem. She expressed regret over the league's limitations, acknowledging that a player of Clark's caliber deserved a financial reward commensurate with her talent and contributions. Engelbert's sincerity in that moment left Clark speechless. There's something comical and profoundly human about a commissioner, a figure of authority usually depicted as composed and stoic, essentially begging a player to stay. Engelbert's words were a blend of emotional appeal and practical reasoning, but the undertone was clear: don't leave us behind. Help us make this better. If Caitlin Clark expected a business-like pitch, what she got instead was more akin to a heartfelt plea from someone who genuinely wanted her in the league, not just for what she could bring in revenue or headlines, but for what she represented to the sport. Clark, with her blend of confidence and humility, was said to have been taken aback by this display. Not easily impressed, she wasn't the type to be swayed by grand gestures alone. Her poker face probably stayed firmly in place, but it's hard not to imagine a small smirk or a raised eyebrow when Engelbert expressed how much the league needed her. The conversation moved through topics ranging from the growth of the sport, the league's expansion plans, and of course, financial considerations. Despite Engelbert's emotional approach, there were still business matters to address. The league's current salary structure was, after all, a key sticking point. Engelbert hinted at ongoing efforts to renegotiate broadcasting deals, secure bigger sponsorships, and potentially raise the salary cap. But she made no sweeping promises that couldn't be kept. It was a gesture of honesty in a time where such a thing can be in short supply. Engelbert's plea wasn't just about one player or even one season. It was about keeping the WNBA on a path to legitimacy in the eyes of its audience. Losing Caitlin Clark wouldn't just be a loss of star power. It would send a signal to other top prospects that maybe the WNBA wasn't the pinnacle of women's basketball, that maybe it couldn't compete with the glamour or financial allure of European teams. Engelbert was well aware of this, and she knew Clark understood it too. To the casual observer, the moment might seem like an odd clash of business interests and personal appeals, but it was a reflection of the league's growing pains. The WNBA wanted desperately to be seen as the top league for women's basketball globally, but in Clark's hesitance, there was a reminder that it wasn't quite there yet. Engelbert wasn't merely bargaining for a player's signature. She was battling against the forces that threatened to undermine the league's vision and hard-won progress. It's not hard to picture the setting. a cozy conference room with a large window, the sunlight pouring in and casting long shadows as the conversation grew more intense. Clark, perhaps tapping a pen thoughtfully on the table, and Engelbert, shifting slightly in her chair, trying to gauge whether her words were hitting home. The dynamic between them, one of authority humbled and talent unsure, was almost theatrical in its simplicity and tension. Throughout her career, Caitlin Clark had displayed an uncanny awareness of her value and influence. She wasn't just a player, but a brand, a magnet for fans, media, and endorsement deals. If there was one thing Clark understood, it was leverage. She had the league on edge, and Engelbert's apology and request weren't just admissions of guilt. They were acknowledgments of Clark's power in that moment. The spectacle wasn't about money alone. It was a negotiation of respect, influence, and the future of women's basketball. After Engelbert's words, Clark didn't give an immediate answer. She wasn't in a hurry, and there was something almost playful about the way she left the commissioner hanging. The silence wasn't awkward. It was heavy with implications. This wasn't a decision to be rushed. Clark's response, whenever it would come, would likely be measured and deliberate, just like her approach to the game. Engelbert probably knew this, but it didn't make the wait any easier. As the meeting came to a close, there wasn't a sense of resolution. It felt more like a temporary truce, a pause in a larger battle. Clark, still speechless, perhaps gave a nod of understanding but didn't commit. And Engelbert, having laid her cards on the table, left with a mix of hope and uncertainty. It was a moment where the stakes were clear, and both sides knew the significance of the choice ahead. The situation laid bare some uncomfortable truths about the WNBA's current standing. Even with its progress, it remained in a position where its biggest stars had reason to look elsewhere. And yet, it was also a moment that showed the league's potential for growth if it could manage to keep its top talent invested. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The commissioner, the highest-ranking official in the league, apologizing for things beyond her control and pleading for patience while making promises of a better future. In the days that followed, the story spread quickly among fans and media alike. Caitlin Clark, silent as ever about her intentions, became the subject of endless speculation. Was she leaning toward the WNBA's promise of growth and legacy building, or was she tempted by the lucrative and less restricted European contracts? The debate raged on social media, with each side arguing passionately, while Clark, likely amused by all the noise, continued to keep her cards close to her chest. What made the entire episode more gripping was the very contrast between the two figures at its center. Engelbert, with the weight of the league's ambitions on her shoulders, and Clark, a young star wielding an almost effortless charisma and skill. The commissioner's apology was an act of humility, while Clark's silence was a demonstration of quiet power. In that moment, both were trying to secure a future, albeit from different positions and motivations. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more engaging content. We thrive on your feedback, so be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Until next time, keep discovering and stay tuned.